My name's Alvin, and if you'd asked me back then, I'd have said life was simple. Not easy, just simple. I lived in Harriston, a small town where everyone knew what you had for breakfast before you even left the porch. I was 23, worked at the local hardware store, mostly stocking lumber, loading paint cans, ringing up neighbors who'd seen me grow up from a baby in diapers to the man behind the counter. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and I had Lily. She had this laugh, like it could knock the dust off your heart. Dark hair, soft voice, eyes that could look through you and make you feel seen. We'd been together 2 years. She was my world, plain and honest. I didn't have much, but I was saving, not for something big. Just enough to buy a ring. Something simple. Something true. To slip onto her finger and say, "You're it. You're home." That summer, I got a shot to make some quick cash. A friend of mine had a gig hauling hay about an hour out of town. 3 weeks. Hard work. Long days. But decent money. Enough to bump my savings. Maybe even take Lily somewhere with tablecloths and candlelight. I took the job. Every night. I'd call her from this rusted payphone nailed to the side of the bunkhouse. Her voice always soft. Always warm. "Miss you," she'd whisper. And I'd smile like a fool. 3 weeks. Just 3. Then I'd be back. What I didn't know was that my mother had her own countdown, and it had nothing to do with my return. And, before we go further, if this story is finding a quiet place in your heart, would you let us know? Drop a comment. Just tell us where you're listening from, or how it made you feel. Here at Voices Stories, we don't just share stories, we hold space for them. And if you'd like to hear more, feel free to subscribe. No pressure. Just stay if it feels right. When I pulled back into Harriston, my old truck clattering down Main Street, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Dust on my boots. Hay scratches, still fresh on my arms. But I had money in my pocket, and Lily in my thoughts. I imagined surprising her, maybe taking her out for pie at her favorite diner. I even thought, stupidly, she might cry when I showed her the savings receipt. The first place I went was her house. That little shotgun house with the peeling paint and the crooked porch swing where we used to sit until the stars came out. Her flowers were blooming out front. Bright and reaching. Just like she always said, life should be. I knocked. Her mom opened the door, tight-lipped. Arms crossed like she'd been waiting to shut someone down. "She's not here." "Alvin," she said, eyes sliding past me like I was no one. "You'd better go talk to your family." My stomach dropped. No explanation. No warmth. Just a door half open and a chill I couldn't shake. I got in the truck and drove home, kicking up gravel. Hard in my throat. Maybe something was wrong. Maybe it wasn't what it seemed. But when I walked into the house, I knew. The kitchen smelled like flour and Sunday roast. But everything was off. Mom was barking orders like a drill sergeant. Apron, dusted white. Waving a spoon at my brother James, like he was some kind of soldier. And James was just standing there. 6'3" of smug, leaning on the counter, arms crossed. And on his hand, a gold ring. Not fancy, but not mine. "Where's Lily?" I asked. My voice raw. Mom wiped her hands on her apron like she was brushing me off. "She's with James now. They're engaged. It's done." He blinked. Once. Twice. The room spun. I looked at James. He grinned wide and proud like he'd just won some sick game. Like I was a loser, who didn't even know the game had started. "What the hell are you talking about?" My voice cracked, rising from somewhere deep. Mom didn't flinch. "Calm down. Lily needed a man, not a boy chasing pipe dreams. James is steady. Strong. He's got a future." And then came the knife. "You're just, you." I'd patched her roof, paid her bills when James was too busy chasing bars. I'd spent my whole damn life trying to earn that woman's approval. and she handed my future to my brother, like it was groceries. I left, didn't even grab a coat. Tires screeched as I peeled away from the driveway, heading straight back to Lily's. She was there this time, sitting on the porch swing, head low, fingers twisting in her lap. Her eyes were red. "Is it true?" I asked. She nodded. Your mom said James could take care of me, that you'd never be enough." She wouldn't meet my eyes. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "You didn't wait," I said. 3 weeks. "Lily, you couldn't even wait 3 weeks." Tears slid down her cheeks. I didn't know what to do. "You could have called." I was shaking. From rage. From heartbreak. She reached for me, but I stepped back. There was nothing left to say. I walked away, her sobs fading behind me, swallowed by the night. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the walls I'd known my whole life. Photos hung crooked on the peeling paint me and James as kids. Fishing rods in hand. Mom laughing at a picnic. But now they just felt like lies nailed to drywall. I wasn't family anymore. I was the spare part. The extra piece they tossed aside when they found something shinier. I didn't sleep. Just sat there. Hollow and wide awake. Until the sun started bleeding through the curtains. By morning, I knew. I wasn't staying. I grabbed a duffel bag. Threw in some clothes. A toothbrush. A couple books I probably wouldn't read. The last $50 from the hay job still sat folded in my jeans pocket. When I came downstairs, Mom was in the living room, knitting, like nothing had happened. Didn't even glance up. "Where you going?" she asked. Eyes fixed on the television. Anywhere but here. She didn't stop me. Didn't ask if I'd eaten. Didn't even ask when I'd be back. James wasn't around. Probably still out celebrating what he stole. I got in the truck and drove. Didn't pack food. Didn't call anyone. Just drove until the town shrank in the rearview mirror, and the only sound left was the rattling engine. I didn't know where I was headed, but I knew one thing: I'd never let them break me again. That was the day I let go of everything I thought I needed to build a life they'd never be able to touch. Leaving Harriston was like shedding a second skin, the kind that no longer fit but still clung tight. My truck rattled down highways. I didn't know. Radio spitting, static, and dust, trailing behind like ghosts. I drove until the gas tank kissed empty. And that's where I landed: Easton. A city louder than I'd ever lived in. All concrete. Noise. And people moving like they were late, for something that never waited. I had $50 in my pocket. A duffel bag of clothes. And this fire in my chest that wouldn't go out. I didn't know what I was chasing. I just knew it wasn't behind me. First few nights, I slept in my truck, parked behind a diner where the cooks didn't care, as long as I was gone by dawn. I'd wake up stiff, back aching, wash my face in a gas station sink, and stare at myself like a stranger. I needed a job, fast, so I walked street after street, pushing open any door with a "Help Wanted" sign. Most folks took one look at my boots, my wrinkled shirt, and said, "We'll call you." But they never did. Then one day, I stumbled into a warehouse on the edge of town. They needed someone to load crates. $10 an hour. No questions. No promises. The work was brutal. My arms screamed after the first shift. Boxes of car parts. Engines. Whatever heavy thing you can imagine, I lifted it. And the foreman, Rick, had a voice like sandpaper and zero patience. "Move it." New kid, he'd bark every hour. And I'd grit my teeth and keep going. Every time I wanted to quit, I saw James's smug grin in my head. Mom's voice, "You're just you." And that fire inside me burned hotter. I wasn't strong yet, but I would be. At night, I rented the cheapest motel room I could find. Thin walls, water-stained ceilings. I'd lay awake, thinking about Lily, about what I'd lost, about what I might still become. Then one night, I saw it. A flyer taped to a street pole near the warehouse night classes. Learn a trade. Build a future. Just 7 words. But something about them stuck. Build a future. I took the flyer, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could. The classroom smelled like old computers and coffee that had burned too long on the hot plate. It wasn't much. Just a windowless room at the community college, with plastic chairs and flickering overhead lights. But to me, it felt like a door. I showed up 5 minutes early, wearing the cleanest shirt I had. My boots scuffed the linoleum as I found a seat in the back. The other students looked like me, tired, quiet, holding on to something they couldn't quite name. The instructor, Mr. Hayes, was a wiry guy with a thinning hairline and glasses that kept slipping down his nose. "You don't have to be smart," he said, setting down his thermos. "You just have to show up." I could do that. That's where I met her. Sarah. She was already at a computer in the last row. Typing like her fingers, knew the keys better than her brain did. Short brown hair, freckles across her nose, and a look in her eyes like she'd seen storms and walked through them anyway. We got paired for a class project, a spreadsheet. Of all things, I stared at the screen, confused by half the buttons. "Relax," she said, scooting her chair next to mine. "It's not brain surgery." She made it look easy. "Herr Fingers flew." I just watched, half grateful, half embarrassed. After class, we ended up at a diner across the street. Black coffee for me, cream and sugar for her. She talked fast, laughed often, and stirred her cup like she was trying to solve something bigger than caffeine. "I grew up here," she said, "but I'm not staying behind a register forever." "What about you?" I shrugged, trying to figure it out. She nodded, like she understood more than I said. And somehow, that small table in a cheap diner felt more like home than anything had in months. From then on, we sat together in class. We studied. We talked about code, movies, what made a good sandwich, little things. But they kept me going. At the warehouse, Rick stopped yelling so much. He even patted my back once and muttered, "You're not half bad, kid." I saved enough to leave the motel and rent a studio. Just a mattress on the floor, a mini fridge, and one good window. But it was mine. One night, Sarah came over with a pizza and dropped to the floor with a grin. "You need furniture," she joked, settling cross-legged on the carpet. We ate from the box, grease on our fingers, laughing about nothing. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. Hey, if you've stayed with me this far, thank you. Stories like this aren't just about the people in them. Sometimes they remind us of pieces of ourselves. If something in this part made you pause or feel a little closer to your own story, we'd love to hear it. Drop a comment. Maybe just share where you're listening from, or what part stayed with you. At Voices Stories, we don't tell stories at you. We sit with them, and with you. If you'd like to hear more, feel free to subscribe, only if it feels right. And now, let's get back to my story. Things didn't change overnight, but they started to shift. Classes got easier, or maybe I just stopped being scared of not knowing. Sarah and I would stay after, helping each other through the lessons. She always knew more than me, but she never made me feel small. And in the warehouse, something changed too. Rick the grumpy, gravel-voiced foreman stopped yelling as much. One day, he even clapped me on the back and said, "Not half bad, kid." It wasn't much, but it meant something. With a few more paychecks, I finally left the motel. Found a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, but it was mine. Just a mattress on the floor, a lamp, and a pan I didn't know how to cook with. Still, when I turned the key at night, I felt like someone worth coming home to. Sarah visited sometimes. We'd eat takeout cross-legged on the floor, her laughing at how empty the place looked. Seriously. She grinned. "You need a chair. Or a table. Or maybe just one fork that's not plastic. I'd laugh too. Not because it was funny, but because for once, my life felt real. Then, one break changed everything. Some guy at the warehouse mentioned his cousin's startup was looking for help. Nothing fancy, he said. They just want someone who shows up and works hard. I showed up. Cleanest shirt I owned. Palms sweaty. I met a skinny guy in a hoodie named Tim who barely looked up from his laptop. "What can you do?" he asked. "Whatever you teach me." He paused, then nodded. "All right. You'll run errands. Hauga are. Sweep if we need it." Cool, cool. It paid less than the warehouse. But I was in. I didn't know what an app even was. But I watched them, this group of smart, scrappy people, building something out of nothing. I took notes, asked questions when I could. I was just the guy fetching coffee. But for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was learning. It didn't happen all at once. There was no movie moment. No sweeping kiss in the rain. Just a quiet shift so small I almost missed it. We'd been studying late again. Same booth at the same diner. Her coffee getting cold while I scribbled half-legible notes across a napkin. She leaned over, correcting something on my worksheet. Her shoulder brushed mine. I didn't flinch. I didn't lean away. I just noticed. The warmth, the ease, how her presence made the air feel less heavy. After that night, I started noticing more. Like the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, or how she talked to strangers with the same kindness she gave to friends. She came over more often. Sometimes with leftovers she didn't want to waste. Sometimes just with stories from her shift. She'd plop onto the mattress, kick off her shoes, and talk like we'd known each other forever. One night, she brought a small potted plant. "Your place needs something alive," she joked, setting it by the window. I stared at it for a second longer than I should have. No one had ever brought something into my space and said, "This is for you." And then, one night, it just happened. We were walking home from class, the city buzzing around us. Soft breeze tugging at her jacket. She reached for my hand. Not tentative, not shy, like she'd done it 100 times. My heart stuttered, then caught up. I squeezed back, and she smiled at the ground like she didn't want me to see her blush. That was the moment. No fireworks. No soundtrack. Just fingers laced together like puzzle pieces that had finally found their match. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have to. After that, she started staying over sometimes. She'd fall asleep curled into me, her breath warm against my neck. And I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell I got so lucky. There were still nights I thought about Lily. Not because I missed her, but because I was afraid to believe this was real. I'd hear Mom's voice in my head again. "You're just you." And part of me would still believe it. But Sarah, she never asked me to be more than I was. And somehow, that made me want to be everything I could. She brought in a small bookshelf one day, stacking it with her used paperbacks. Hung a string of lights around the window. Suddenly, my cold little apartment didn't feel so temporary anymore. One evening, I came home from the startup, exhausted, arms full of takeout. She was already there, wearing my old hoodie, hair tied up, barefoot, dancing to some song playing from her phone. She looked up when I walked in. "Hi," she said, like it was the best part of her day. And maybe it was, because hearing her say it felt like coming home. That night, after dinner, she sat cross-legged, face lit by the glow of the string lights. We weren't doing anything special, just talking, laughing, her foot tapping against mine under the blanket. I looked at her, really looked, and the words came out before I could stop them. "You feel like home." She didn't laugh. She didn't tease. She leaned in, kissed me slow and soft, and whispered, "So do you." That's how it started. No big promises. No grand declarations. Just two people, bruised by the world, choosing to grow something new together. We never planned it. Not exactly. But one morning, Sarah held a white stick in her hand, blinking at the little pink line like she couldn't quite believe it. I remember the silence in the room, how the world seemed to hold its breath with us. And then she looked at me. I think I'm pregnant. I just stared. Not because I was scared, but because in that moment, it felt like time cracked open. And there was a before and after. I crossed the room, knelt in front of her, and placed my hand on her belly. Nothing was showing yet, but my whole life shifted in that gesture. I'm here, I said, and I meant it. From that day, everything changed. The apartment that once felt like a hiding place became something else. A nest. We cleaned more. Bought a secondhand crib off someone online. Sarah started talking to her belly at night, telling jokes the baby couldn't understand yet. I'd stand in the doorway, watching her, heart full of something I'd never had a name for until then. Hope. When Mia came into the world, she was all noise and light, an impossible beauty. Tiny hands that grasped my finger like she'd known me forever. Freckles already dotting her nose just like her mom. I remember holding her that first night in the hospital. My arms stiff with fear, but also awe. She fit perfectly against my chest, like she belonged there. And I cried. Quiet. Full. Aching tears. Not because I was sad, but because I couldn't believe someone had trusted me with something so precious. A year later came Ethan chubbier, louder, and somehow even more stubborn than his sister. He came screaming into the world, fists clenched, like he had opinions from the first breath. I laughed through tears that day, rocking him while Mia poked his cheek, wide-eyed and curious. Our home got smaller, not by square feet, but by how full it became. Toys scattered across the floor, crayon scribbles on the walls, midnight bottle feeds, lullabies sung half asleep, giggles echoing down the hallway. I'd come home from work, worn to the bone, and they'd run to the door like I was a superhero. Mia shouting, Daddy Ethan waddling behind her, arms outstretched. And in those moments, I wasn't the boy from Harriston. I wasn't the man who got left behind. I was Dad. And that title held more power than any job or title ever could. Sarah. She became the center of it all. Not just my wife. My compass. My calm. She handled chaos with grace. Spilled juice. Tantrums. Bills. Deadlines. And somehow, still found a way to kiss my forehead and ask, You okay at the end of the day? We didn't have much, but what we had was real. And slowly, day by day, I built something I never thought I could. A family. A home. A life that wasn't haunted by the past, but grounded in love. It was an ordinary Thursday. Papers scattered across my desk. A half-drunk coffee going cold beside my laptop. The hum of the office buzzed around me, keyboards clacking. Phones ringing. Someone laughing down the hall. I was deep in logistics, shipment delays, budget lines, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Harriston area code. I froze. That number had no business calling me. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Let it ring out and disappear like the rest of that old life. But something in me said, pick up. I answered. Hello, a pause. Then Alvin. It's Pete. Your uncle. My throat tightened. Dad's brother. I hadn't heard his voice in over a decade. He's gone. Son. Uncle Pete's voice was rough. Warn. Your dad. Heart attack. It was quick. The funeral's Saturday. I couldn't speak. Not right away. My father. Quiet man. Not cruel. But not strong either. He'd let Mom run the show. Stood silent when I needed someone to speak for me. He never hurt me, but he never stopped her either. Still, he was my dad. I'll be there. I finally said. Hung up. Stared at the wall. Sarah found me like that when she got home. Coat still on. Kids trailing behind her. Ethan babbling about dinosaurs. She paused when she saw my face. What's wrong, my dad? I said. He's gone. She stepped closer. You don't have to go, she said gently. But I shook my head. I do. Not for Mom. Not for James or Lily. For him. And maybe. For me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got out of bed, careful not to wake her, and went to the closet, pulled down a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were photos, old cards, and a letter from my mother, still sealed, postmarked 5 years ago. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe part of me had still been waiting. I sat on the floor, unfolded it with hands that trembled more than I expected. Alvin, come home. We miss you. James and Lily are struggling. Help us. No, I'm sorry. No, we were wrong. Just a demand. Like always. I crumpled it, threw it in the trash. But tucked behind it was something else. A second note. Different handwriting. Slanted. Shaky. Dad's. Alvin, I left you the old watch. It's not much, but it's yours. I should have given you more. Forgive me. I stared at the words. It wasn't enough to fix what he hadn't done, but it was something. A whisper. Maybe. From a man who never found his voice when he was alive, but tried at the end. The drive back to Harriston felt like crossing a line I had drawn in the dirt 12 years ago. My truck hummed under me, the road stretching like an old scar still there. Still tender. The fields blurred past the windows. But in my chest, everything was sharp. I hadn't been back since the night I left. Engines screaming into the dark. And now I was returning, not as a boy lost, but as a man rebuilt. 12 years. The town hadn't changed much. Same sagging porcus. Same cracked gas station sign. Same silence that once made me feel small. I pulled into a motel on the edge of town. Cheap. Dim. Familiar. Paid in cash. Didn't leave my name. That night, I lay in a stiff bed, staring at a ceiling I didn't know, but a feeling I did. That ache of returning to a place you never wanted to see again, a place that still lived inside you. Saturday morning came gray and cold. I wore a black suit, simple, clean, the kind you wear when you're showing respect, or trying to remember how. The church looked the same, peeling white paint, the steeple leaning like it had given up trying. The parking lot was full old neighbors, second cousins, people who still saw me as the one who vanished. I slipped into a seat near the back, kept my head down. Up front, they sat like a throne, Mom in black. Hair pulled so tight, her face barely moved. James, broader than before. Arms folded like a statue. And Lily. She looked thin, pale, hands clasped in her lap like she was holding herself together. I hadn't seen them in over a decade. But that ache in my gut, it remembered them well. Someone whispered beside me. They stuck you in the back. Huh. Typical Margaret. I didn't answer. Then the service started. The preacher spoke of family, of devotion, of quiet men who loved in quiet ways. I wanted to scoff, but something in my throat stopped me, because no matter what he didn't say, he was still my father. Then came the surprise. Uncle Pete got up, cleared his throat, and said, Alvin, your dad left something. He wanted you to read it. Every head turned. I froze. Mom's lips went thin. James looked annoyed. Lily stared straight ahead, unmoving. But I stood, took the folded note Pete handed me, walked down that long church aisle, my footsteps loud in the hush. When I reached the front, I turned, faced them all, opened the note. To my son, Alvin. I wasn't the father you needed. I didn't stop the things I should have. But I saw you. I saw the man you were becoming. You made something from nothing. You gave yourself a life no one handed to you. I'm proud of you. I just never said it. My voice trembled. But I kept going. You're stronger than I ever was. Don't let anyone tell you different. Silence filled the space. For a moment, I felt like that boy again, small. Desperate. But then I looked back and saw Sarah standing near the door, Mia in a black skirt, Ethan clinging to her leg. My family. I brought them today. I said softly. My family. I nodded toward the back. Sarah stepped forward, kids in hand. She walked them slowly down the aisle each step, a reminder that I wasn't alone. They reached me. Sarah took my hand. The whole room was still. Mum's face went pale. James's jaw tightened. Lily blinked. Once, like she'd just woken up, I came back. I said, not to prove anything, just to say I made it. And I'm okay. Then I folded the letter, tucked it in my jacket, and we returned to our seats. The rest of the service passed in a blur hymns, prayers, hands on shoulders. But I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Let them see. The rain had started by the time we stepped outside. It wasn't heavy, just steady. The kind that clung to your clothes. Soaked into your bones without asking. Sarah stood close beside me. Mia and Ethan ran small circles around a puddle near the curb, giggling, like the sky hadn't just buried a man. I thought it was over. I thought I could walk away, get in the truck, and leave the past behind for good. But then I saw them. Mom, James, Lily, pushing through the thinning crowd, moving toward me like a storm I'd already lived through once. My pulse ticked up, not from fear, from old memory, like my body remembered what it felt like to be cornered. They stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could see the raindrops glistening on Mom's earrings. She spoke first. Of course she did. You should have told us you were coming. No, hello. No hug. No softness. Just the same clipped tone she used when I left. I looked at her, then at James, arms crossed, jaw tight. Lily, standing a little further back, umbrella drooping in her hand, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I didn't think you'd care, I said. Her mouth twitched. Of course we care. Your family. She glanced at Sarah. Then the kids. Her eyes narrowed. Calculating. What's all this? She asked, gesturing toward my life like it was a costume. The suit. The wife. The children. I didn't answer right away. Let the question hang. Then Sarah stepped closer. Her hand, finding mine without hesitation. This, I said, is my life. I built it. Without any of you. James scoffed. Oh. Come on. So you show up now. Like some big shot. Reading Dad's letter. Like you're better than us. I turned to him. Calmly. I left because I had to. You stayed and took everything that wasn't yours. His nostrils flared. You were gone. Alvin. You left her. You left us. I laughed. Bitter and dry. I left for 3 weeks. To earn enough to start something with Lily. And in that time, you and Mom handed her over like a prize from a raffle. She needed someone reliable. Mom snapped. Not someone chasing dreams that never led anywhere. She needed me. I said, voice low. But none of you ever thought I was enough. James stepped forward. Rain plastered his shirt to his chest. So what now? You're rich CEO. Big man. You come back to rub it in. No. I said. I came back for Dad. Not for you. Not for this. I paused. Looked at Lily. She hadn't said a word. Lily, I asked. Get her now. She flinched like hearing her name. Broke some invisible wall. I didn't mean to hurt you. She whispered. Your mom? She said you weren't coming back. She made it sound like you didn't care. I swallowed hard. You could have waited 3 weeks. I said. You could have called. But you didn't. Her eyes filled. But I didn't soften. Some things didn't need kindness anymore. She looked down. Said nothing more. James muttered under his breath. Still full of yourself. I turned to him. Steady. I slept in a truck. Ate from gas stations. Worked. Until my hands bled. Where were you then? Oh, right. Slipping on the ring I was saving for. Mom raised a hand, trying to wave it all away. That's enough. We've all made mistakes. Maybe now you can help. The farm's struggling. James lost his job. There it was. The ask. Same old mom offering forgiveness only when she needed something. I stared at her. Saw the same face from my childhood kitchen. And I said, quiet but clear, you didn't help me when I had nothing. You don't get to ask for anything now. I nodded to Sarah. Let's go. She called to the kids. And they came running laughing. Unaware. We turned toward the truck. Behind me. Mom called out. Alvin, wait. We're sorry. Okay, we didn't know. But I didn't stop. James shouted something I didn't catch. Lily stayed silent. We got in the truck. Doors. Slamming shut. The engine started. As we pulled away, I looked in the mirror. They stood in the rain. Small. Soggy figures who once towered over me. Now just people I used to know. We drove through the rain. Sarah beside me, her hand resting soft on my knee. The kids in the back, giggling about wet socks and asking if we could stop for burgers. The truck hummed forward. Steady. And for the first time in years, I didn't look back. I didn't feel angry. Not even sad. Just finished. I'd said what needed saying. Stood where I once crumbled. And walked away whole. We stopped at a diner, an hour outside Harriston. The kind of place with taped-up booths and waitresses who call you Han. It smelled like grease and old coffee. It felt like peace. We slid into a booth. Mia pressed her face to the fogged-up window, drawing a heart. Ethan played with sugar packets like they were treasure. I watched them. Watched Sarah wipe ketchup from Ethan's cheeks. Watched Mia giggle when the waitress brought her extra napkins. This was mine. No one could take it. Sarah caught my eye across the table. You're quiet, she said, wiping her hands. I nodded. Just letting it go. She smiled. That soft Sarah smile. The kind that doesn't rush you. We finished up, packed back into the truck. The rain had softened into a drizzle. The road opened before us. Dark and wet, and full of possibility. Mia and Ethan sang quietly in the back seat off-key. Full-hearted, Sarah leaned her head against my shoulder. Proud of you, she murmured. I didn't answer. Just squeezed her hand. When we got home to Easton, the porch light was on warm and waiting. The house wasn't fancy, but it was ours. I carried Ethan in, his arms wrapped around my neck. Sarah took Mia by the hand. We tucked them into bed, kissed their foreheads, closed the doors behind us like closing a chapter. Later, in the quiet hum of night, we sat on the couch, steam curling from our mugs of coffee. You going to tell me what happened? Sarah asked gently. So I did. Told her everything. Dad's letter. Mom's excuses. James's bitterness. Lily's silence. How'd it feel? She asked. I took a long breath. Like closing a book that doesn't need rereading. She nodded. Then it's done. I sipped my coffee. Outside. The rain had finally stopped. It was late when we got home. The porch light cast a soft glow on the brick walls, for the kind of quiet welcome you only get when it's really yours. The kids were half asleep, warm and limp in our arms. We carried them in, kissed their foreheads, and watched their small chests rise and fall beneath soft blankets. Then, just like that, the house was quiet. Sarah poured us both, a mug of coffee, hers, sweet. Mine, black, and we curled up on the couch. The hum of the night filling the space between us. She didn't rush, didn't press, just waited. I didn't think I'd feel this calm. I said finally, eyes fixed on the dark window. What happened? She asked, voice low. So I told her about the look on Mom's face when she saw me, James's bitterness that hadn't aged a day, and Lily, with her umbrella, and regrets she couldn't quite speak aloud. Sarah listened, the way she always did, like it mattered. Like I mattered. When I finished, she took a sip of coffee, then asked, "Do you want to forgive them?" I sat with that question. Let it stretch across the silence. Did I? I searched for something burning inside me. Anger, hate, resentment. But all I found was space. Room that used to be crowded with ache. Now finally quiet. No, I said. She nodded, like she understood. But I kept going. Not because I hate them. I don't. Not anymore. But they don't get to have a piece of this, of what I built. That's not punishment. It's just the boundary. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I get it. And I knew she did. Forgiveness isn't owed. Sometimes, choosing not to carry someone forward with you, that is the grace. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The house was still, wrapped in soft shadows. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the tick of the wall clock, and the slow, even breaths of a home at peace. Sarah and the kids were still asleep, so I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake anyone, and made my way to the closet. There, tucked beneath an old flannel blanket and a box of forgotten cables, was the thing I'd carried for years. The box, the one filled with everything I thought I'd left behind. I pulled it out and sat on the floor, cross-legged like a kid again. Laid the lid aside. Inside, photos faded with time. Ticket stubs from small-town carnivals. A letter from Mom creased and worn from how many times I'd crumpled and uncrumpled it. And there, hidden at the bottom, a second envelope. Smaller, different handwriting. I hadn't seen it before. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, a note, just a few lines. Scribbled in the shaky script I recognized right away. My father's. Alvin, I left you the old watch. It's not much, but it's yours. I should have given you more. Forgive me. That was it. No long explanations. No excuses. Just a gesture. The watch. A beat-up silver piece he wore every day. I hadn't seen it at the funeral. Guess he'd hidden it, made sure it was meant for me. My throat tightened. Not from sadness. Not even grief. Just the weight of something real. A man who never spoke much had finally said something. He hadn't fought for me in life. But in this quiet, simple way, he reached back. I closed my eyes. Felt the years catch up to me. All the times I thought I had no one. Maybe I did. Just not in the way I wanted. I folded the note, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it gently into the box. I didn't need to hang on to anger anymore. Not when something like this could exist in silence for so long and still find its way home. The sky was clear that afternoon. For the first time in days, the sun broke through the clouds, warm on our backs. We took the kids to the park just a few blocks away. Nothing special. But that's the thing about moments like these. They don't need to be grand to be unforgettable. Mia ran ahead, her laughter floating through the air. Ethan toddled after a butterfly, arms outstretched like he could catch it. Sarah sat on a bench, sipping her iced coffee, her eyes soft and full of something I couldn't name, but it felt a lot like peace. I pushed Mia on the swings, her squeals louder with each arc toward the sky. Higher. Daddy. And I did. Because I could. For a moment, I stepped back, watched them all. This tiny world I'd built. It wasn't fancy. Not shiny like the dreams people sell you when you're young. But it was real. I looked down and caught my own reflection in a puddle. A face older. A little worn. Eyes steadier than before. And just like that, I saw it. Not a man chasing ghosts. Not someone trying to prove anything to anyone. Just me. Right here. Enough. I used to think winning meant taking back everything I lost. But now, standing there in the park, watching my kids laugh, and Sarah smile, I knew better. The real victory wasn't proving them wrong. It was building this life. brick by brick, choice by choice. This was my answer. To every wound, every goodbye, every, you'll never make it. I made it. And I didn't need anyone else to see it for it to be true. I used to think healing meant getting an apology, a confession, a moment where they finally saw what they did. But over time, I learned something else. Sometimes, what we really need is a place to begin again. Someone who listens, and a reason to stop looking back. I don't know if they, the ones who hurt me, ever truly regretted it. But now, that doesn't matter. I have a family to love, a life I've built with my own hands, and a version of myself I can finally be proud of. Not out of revenge, not to prove anything, just because I deserve this. And if you're still listening by now, maybe there's a part of you that's walked a similar road. A wound no one noticed. A goodbye that stayed with you longer than it should have. And a quiet journey you've taken on your own. If this story brought something up for you, a memory, a thought, even just a feeling you hadn't touched in a while, leave us a comment. Let Voices Stories, and the people listening here with you, know where you are and what you've been through. We're not here to fix you. We're just here to listen. And if you'd like to keep walking through stories like this with us, we hit subscribe just once, so we can meet again in the next one.